Welcome back to the Best Ball Boardroom. We have a highly anticipated show today where we bring the analytics crowd. We actually dive into the numbers. We bring on the brains that are actually propelling Leone to all of these glory that he gets for creating these projections, when in reality, there are two extremely smart, fantastic, bright minds that are grinding the tape, making sure that Leone can't get too many olds in those rankings. We've got to keep him in check. That's why we bring on Mark and Jack from the ETR projections team. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Pumped to be here in the boardroom. Obviously got the jacket on today to, class it up a little bit. And we've got the King ETR suit in Denver today, Taylor KB. So I'm going to pop to some lunch after this with him. So, had to suit up today.
Jack, I don't know if you were ever an intern with ETR, but you were definitely at college while working for us. Then you go full-time and bringing in the heat with an orange hoodie. Love it.
Yeah, still repping, University of Illinois. I did miss the memo on the sport coat, so feeling a little bit underdressed right now, but excited to draft with you guys.
That's okay. We were talking about it at the water cooler. You must have missed it. Don't worry about it. We've got these. Your annual review will not make note of your orange hoodie. It's okay. Everyone, how's it going? GM, welcome to the Best Ball Board. Okay, August 14th, we had finally a complete week of preseason. I know you guys like snap shares, who's playing with who's playing in what formation. There's a ton of information that some of it might be kind of, distractions, but some of it's actually really valuable. I'll start with you, Mark, before we jump in, just like high level. What is the one takeaway that you've had from preseason so far?
Well, I think it's, we're ideally looking for who's playing the first team snaps with the starting offense. I think that's really kind of the main, valuable information we can glean from the preseason. So early on, I've been targeting the Packers offense. They're an undervalued offense that Jack and I hit on the ETE pod that we took over when Leone was gone. And to see Luke Musgrave in there getting all the first team tight end snaps, getting a couple targets, and then to see Jaden Reed firmly in there as the starting slot wide receiver is kind of one thing that stuck out to me, confirming my priors. We love to do that during preseason. So that definitely stuck out to me early on.
All right, I like that. Jack, what about you?
Yeah, same idea as Mark, really, just looking at the usage as opposed to the box score. So stuff like, the Bears passing offense, first team passing offense, having 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, not as important as something like Hayden Hurst running 7 routes on 7 Bryce Young dropbacks, or Michael Wilson playing in 2 receiver sets over Rondale Moore. So, not the most glamorous takeaways, but I think the usage is the stuff that is more actionable in terms of what it means for the regular season.
I mean, props to you for staying on brand, for confirming our priors. I think we've been like 30 picks ahead on Hayden Hurst all summer. So it is glad to see that Hayden Hurst actually is that starting tight end. He is not our 2023 Brashad Perryman. I personally, and my portfolio, love to see that. Gentlemen, 1.01 influencer. Are you going to try to convince me not to go Justin Jefferson?
No, I'm all in on J-Jeff at 1.
Yeah, I'm good taking JJ here. Nice to get the influencer 101.
I mean, when you're in the boardroom, we do what we can. You got to grind the wheels. You got to make sure that we can get as many of those 1.01s to take Justin Jefferson. Christian McCaffrey goes number 2 overall. Bit of a loose one there. Anyone that's here, if you're in chat with us, let us know what pick you're at. And Jack, I think you're working on an article right now. You just pinged me about it, about like drafting from different structures. I won't kind of give away too much of the article, but let's talk specifically for this one, for pick 1. Have you thought through like what your kind of structure normally looks like, what you're looking for from the rest of the draft? What are your thoughts now that we got Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I mean, the first round, you just take Justin Jefferson and call it a day. And then the second round is 2-3 turn is really when it gets a little more interesting, because you kind of have to decide if you're good with starting with 3 straight receivers. And most of the time when I've gotten either Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, I've tried to get at least one non-receiver in those first 3 rounds. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to take a running back there. I've been fine taking sometimes a quarterback and more often Mark Andrews with that pick in the 3rd round. So that's really just a consideration when you're picking from the top.
Yep. What about you, Mark? And both of you been in the best ball streets a lot. playing underdog? How are you kind of doing your best ball season? And then Mark, I'll let you go for the 1.01, but good to get that context.
Yeah, I have about 200 drafts done on underdog, probably in the 50 to 60 range on DraftKings. So a little bit heavier underdog, but this has certainly been best ball summer for me. Last summer, I got married in August, and so that kind of cut down a lot of my drafting time. So I wanted to make sure, this year I delved in, pretty deeply. So yeah, I've been in the underdog streets quite a bit.
Nice. And so 1.01, you take Jefferson. What are you thinking through the rest of the draft?
It kind of depends on 2-3 turn necessarily who I'm targeting. Ideally, a value will drop. Like if Olave ends up at the 2-3 turn, I like picking him. If Devontae Smith and Hurts are there, I'll like to kind of just double tap those guys, get the correlation immediately, and the elite quarterback there. So I'm not necessarily targeting guys like Derrick Henry can be there. I've backed off Jonathan Taylor, as has the market. I'm a little worried about his outlook, even if he does return to play for the Colts. So it kind of just depends on ADP value, but mostly I'm targeting wide receivers, and if there is a great running back value there, I'm fine taking that as well.
Yeah. All right. I want to touch on one player that is falling in drafts right now. We've been high on him, but right here, number 17 just went Devante Adams. I think we might have him number 11 or 12 in our underdog rankings. I think Levitan just said that he has him around like 15 or so in his most recent pod with Silva. Where are you guys kind of feeling out this Devante Adams, the calf strain, the Jimmy G, the larger offense? Like Jack, what else? Let you start.
Yeah, I mean, from a projections perspective, it's kind of hard to get him down too far. He led the league in target share last year at 30.7%. Right now, we have him almost 5 points below that, and we have a ceiling target share even like below where his actual target share was last year. And we're still coming in ahead of ADP. I think the risk with him is like if the Raiders just blow up and there's like some systematic thing where near the end of the year they're just a disaster. Devante Adams isn't playing for whatever reason. But I mean, from a numbers perspective, it's really hard to get Devante Adams to a point where he's not showing at a value at his current ADP.
Yeah, and so it's really like a wash after pick 8, I feel like, between Lamb, AJ, Adams, Amon-Ra. Like, do you see him going all the way to the top of that being mixed in?
I think it's a pretty tight tier. I have been taking Adams over Wilson and Amon-Ra, but I'm taking the other guys you mentioned before Adams. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not trying to I try not to take like insanely heavy stances on guys in the first 2 rounds. I do say maybe I should hold this thought since we're on the clock.
Hold it real quick. We are on the clock. We a lot of options we can go with this. We can grab Mark Andrews and go with Lamar. We can go another wide receiver with Calvin Ridley and maybe get some Jacksonville guys later. Or we can go with one of these elite RBs.
I would do Andrews and Ridley if it was just myself on the clock.
I'm good.
We're going to take Andrews. I love that. I'm loving Andrews just in general right now, and I think this is getting a little more unique. We have this other pick, though. We could go Lamar and get that stack. We could go Ridley here. I think Andrews and Ridley is pretty unique from what's been happening in BBM throughout.
I'm fine with that. I have dabbled with the Lamar and Andrews 2-3 turn, but I think that was going at the 3-4 turn a bit earlier in draft, so I don't know how much edge it really gives other than unique combinations.
I think it's the Justin Jefferson aspect, is that even though people were getting it at that 3-4, they were never getting Justin Jefferson with it, and This is the only way to get it. I agree with you, though. It does seem like it's not as unique as like we would think with the ADP because people just kind of want to get that. I think it's worth having some of it in your portfolio. Let's talk Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley has just been getting steamed up the draft boards. I mean, people were able to get him in the kind of early 4th round, maybe a month or so ago. Christian Kirk maybe isn't even in running in 2 wide receiver sets now. Like, talk me through. Is this noise or is this real?
I think the Ridley thing is news, a bit, just with how good he's looked in camp. Obviously was, top end talent at wide receiver when he was active. And I like betting on him a bit more. I feel a bit more confident in it because he missed the season for the gambling suspension, obviously, rather than an injury. So I think, we can feel a bit more confident about him being completely healthy. And then, I'll let Jack talk about the Jacksonville offense because he's really high on them in general and hit on them on a podcast. So he can kind of expand just how excited we are projection wise about the Jacksonville passing offense.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this offense. Pat Thorman had them listed first in his teams that he expects to play faster in 2023. So I think it's reasonable to expect an uptick in pace. And then Lawrence also got a lot better, especially over the second half of last season. He was grading out in PFF and efficiency metrics as like a top 10 quarterback. I think it's possible he takes another leap and really ascends. He's just been such a consistent like top prospect and top, top performer dating back to his time in high school, and he's just steadily improved during his 2 years in the NFL. I think another jump is possible, and Ridley going from Marvin Jones to Ridley is just an enormous upgrade. So I think this passing offense could really take off this year, and obviously they're kind of being priced as such, with especially now that Ridley's going at the 2-3 turn as opposed to mid-late third round like he was earlier in the draft cycle. But I still think that there's some room for them to outperform here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You say like that they are being priced accordingly, but the truth, I mean, Ridley's definitely got more expensive, but Christian Kirk has gotten cheaper. And then Zay Jones, I don't know if his ADP's gotten cheaper, but like guys like Nico Collins and others have risen above him. So like, I mean, if we look at ADP, I think there's a decent chance that we can have a little Jaguars stack if we wanted. Christian Kirk at 50.9, that comes back around here where I feel like I had been drafting him a bunch in this like mid-early, I'd say mid-fourth. And if we look at the rest, where are we looking at for Trevor Lawrence is 65. He'd have to fall a little to us, but no one's reaching on him for a stack if we get both Kirk and Ridley.
I was about to say, typically when you end up with Ridley and Kirk, I see Trevor Lawrence fall quite often there. So I think that's definitely someone we can target. In terms of Christian Kirk only playing in 3 wide receiver sets in the preseason, it's definitely not ideal. But in terms of talent and contract wise, last offseason, everyone was saying, "Oh my gosh, Christian Kirk, what an overpay for the Jaguars!" And obviously had a breakout season. So I don't necessarily buy completely that they would play Zay Jones strictly over him in 2 wide receiver sets. And then I think just with this offense, we're expecting a lot of 11 personnel there in Jacksonville. So I'm not necessarily too concerned by that. And if he continues to dip in ADP, then I think I'll continue to draft him.
Like that. All right, we got Calm As You Like in the 8th pick here. I want to shout out his team and ask for your thoughts. Grabs Diggs the 8. Okay. Gets Devante at 17, a little bit of value. Gets Josh Jacobs to kind of get that Las Vegas stack and a bit of the following Josh Jacobs value. What are your thoughts on this kind of start with the 2 Raiders?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid start. I'm unsure what to do with Jacobs right now. I think there's definitely a chance I'm too fearful of him, but I do think from a correlation aspect, I kind of talked about a couple rounds ago how the biggest risk with Adams is just if the Raiders kind of maybe blow up this season. And so by having Adams and Jacobs, you kind of have that correlation of they're both pretty likely to outperform their ADP if the Raiders just have a normal season. And then if, they have a bad season, it doesn't really matter. It's just, a bullet wasted. So I like it from that perspective. And then Diggs is obviously pretty rock solid in the first round.
Yeah, I'm fine taking Adams. I don't necessarily love pairing them because, as Jack mentioned earlier, I'm worried just about kind of complete collapse around this team, which would, essentially tank your best ball team if you had both rather than just one. But I think, if Jacobs comes back and is playing week 1, then obviously that's way too cheap of a price tag. So I definitely understand, both sides and taking both.
Yeah, I align with Jack's thought of even if I don't draft both of them, but I lose one of those 2, that team is probably dust. Maybe you can survive it, but you're going to go through the playoffs with your second rounder, your third rounder. It's difficult. I'd rather just, accept that that's a bullet lost. It is what it is. All right, coming back around to us, this is definitely a wait on QB draft so far, worth at least keeping in mind. Did Kirk go or did we?
Looks like he went.
Christian Kirk went 43 to the Cheetah. Interesting. That is definitely early for him. We do not have any running backs yet. We've got Hopkins. We've got Terry.
I'd probably
What are your
go with
thoughts?
those
9
two.
seconds.
I'm good with. I like Hopkins first, and then I'm good with either Walker or Terry at
Okay.
49.
All right. We're not going to go Hawkinson. We've got Mark Andrews. So Kenneth Walker, Terry. Terry would barely be a 0 RB star. We'd have strong wide receivers. Walker does feel like a bit of an end of the tier of running backs. Give me a decision, someone.
I'm good either way here. I like both offenses here a lot. Sam Howell is my most drafted quarterback at this point, so I'm good with McLaurin, but also like Walker if we want to mix in an RB.
Okay,
I'm good either way.
Let's go 0 RB. We're keeping it
Sweet.
going. I
Let's
do
do it.
think like Kenneth Walker could be falling a bit more as drafts go on too, just because Charbonnet, his what was the word that were to describe how long he was going to be out?
Indefinite.
His indefinite out was like I think 3 days. He was back in the preseason game. I don't think he made much noise in it, but it was just good to see him back out there. But Kenneth Walker, we still haven't seen him return back to practice, so it wouldn't surprise me just from blurbs that he falls a little further.
Yeah, I think Walker was back at practice, but I don't think he fully participated.
Okay.
Justin,
we'll
do you stop at 6 wide receivers ever on these 0 RB teams, or are you pretty much always getting to 7?
I'll do 6. I think the data shows it. I think what I will note is the data around 6 wide receivers in the past was when you were in the 6th round, you were getting wide receivers that are now going in the 4th round. Mm-hmm. So 6 wide receivers were before were stronger than 6 wide receivers now. So I think that's worth keeping in mind. Normally, I'd rather go like 5 strong ones, and also it gives me backdoor stack options as well as falling later value. So I have done it, but like I honestly would rather go 5 and then maybe 2 more later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Noteworthy here, Herbert goes with the Jalen Hurts team. He goes Hurts, Devonta Smith. He then wants to stack Herbert with Eckler. Passes on Justin Fields with DJ Moore to grab Justin Herbert. Interesting. Either way, 2 QBs going here is at least noteworthy as we go forward with the draft. Hawkinson falling all the way to 57. That's a bit of a fall for him. Interesting.
It does look like quarterback wise, if Cheetah doesn't take Lawrence, he could potentially get back to us at the turn, but that's probably the decision point there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that one might not go our way, considering it's like right at Lawrence's ADP and he has the stack with Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully.
And the red badge doesn't give us comfort for maybe he just doesn't know what stacks are, but
yeah,
we'll see how it plays out. And also, I mean, we kind of set up that if we miss out on the Ridley, we can still go Jefferson, and then we could also, if we wanted, go with like Tannehill and Sam Howell. Like that's the level of capital that if I'm going 3 QBs, I get like a solid upside with Cousins with a Jefferson stack, but then also 2 very late ones.
Oh, Lawrence goes right there. Wow.
Interesting.
Unstacked Lawrence ahead of ADP.
Oh, buddy. All right. What are we doing? And passes on Lamar Jackson at 36 and 37 to grab Trevor Lawrence unstacked at 60. This is you know what? Hey,
oh wow,
it ripped the Band-Aid off. We were never getting it. Cheetah's the one. Cheetah, if you're in chat, let us know. I doubt it, but Cheetah, I'm sorry. You were the one who were going to grab Trevor Lawrence probably, and you missed out. It is what it is. Who are we worried about for Cousins then? Hawkinson here does not have a QB. That would be pick 88. That's pretty early for for Cousins. I don't think we're gonna. Yeah,
the guy that just picked Addison too. Although he
Fields.
Yeah, he has Fields.
I think the question for the Cousins is, his ADP is 111. Do you reach at the 96, 97, or do you hope he falls 120, 121?
I think we'd have to take him at 97.
Yeah, if we wanted him, we can see what else we have kind of building or what QBs are available, but that's definitely a little difficult. Okay. Nick picks 6. Wide receiver, then 4 straight running backs. I don't know if there's a dead zone this year, but Nick picks 6 is testing that question.
And ideally, he'd probably want to stop at 4, but we'll see if he does that.
Yeah,
with all that draft capital.
So we could have gone Josh Allen here. I've kind of stopped or slowed down on Josh Allen here because it's so rare to get Gabe Davis to fall to you nowadays. It seems more and more Gabe is going in these mid 60s. Granted, Millie got Josh Allen here, so got the stack there. I'm happy to grab Josh Allen here, but it feels like if you try to go here, you're kind of guaranteeing that you're not getting Diggs. You're probably not getting Gabe these days. You could grab a Kincaid at 120, but he often even goes in these 1-teens. I think his ADP is like 115 right now. Oh, 120. There you go. Okay. That's not as bad as I thought. So maybe there. Okay. We've got some running backs at the top of the board. May not be a whole time to grab 2 running backs.
I like Pierce, and we have the Hopkins week 17 correlation there.
I like that. I mean, we also got Carolina Jacksonville for Ridley and Sanders.
True. I haven't drafted any Miles Sanders. How do you guys feel about him?
Yeah, I'm not super into Miles here, but it is 9 picks past ADP. I do have a lot of David Montgomery, and he's been one of my favorite kind of mid-round running backs. So that would be the decision point for me here. But with the correlation and with a round of ADP difference, I'm not going to object to Miles here.
I think that's what it is for me. Is I don't have that much. I think I'm around like 4% of my portfolio. I accept that there are some really smart people and tuned in people. Josh Norris, Carolina fan, very bullish on Miles Sanders this year. If I'm going to have exposure to him, this is the exact time to get exposure to him where if you look at your next picks, you're now actually reaching a tiny bit. He gives us that correlation. The only downside to that pick really is 2 bye week 7 running backs, but we're already making this at least a 6 running back team. So I don't know.
Yeah. And kind of when you factor in the ADP value, Leone and his manifesto mentioned when you're looking at Miles Sanders and then David Montgomery there, it's not only the 9 spots of Sanders, but you're also selecting Montgomery about 4 spots ahead of ADP. So it's kind of like a 13 spot difference there in ADP, which, I'm fine going Sanders there kind of as the sticking point. And then, obviously the correlation as well.
Yeah. I like that. Jack, was it you that was saying you really like Deshaun Watson? You've got a lot of Deshaun Watson from like an upside standpoint. I'm trying to remember if that was on one of the ETs.
Yeah, I think Watson's my favorite quarterback this year at cost.
Okay. So I completely understand what you're saying. I think I agree with it too. He's a player that we've seen him have substantial, even top 3, maybe in the new system, like this current drafting structure, top 5 QB upside. There's wide range of outcomes. I want to have more of him, but I've realized I have very, very little. And I think that's because I'm also not drafting that much Amari Cooper with our rankings because we're a little down on Cooper. So my question for you is, in your drafts, are you purposefully drafting a little more Cooper so you can get him? Or are you just saying, no, I'm not going to reach there. I'll grab Watson. I can grab Elijah Moore, do a little double tap at like 84, 85, and then maybe get Njoku at like 108 or something.
Yeah, it's mostly the second option. I have a decent number of teams with the Watson Moore 7-8 turn, and then the Watson Njoku kind of late 7, early 8, and then Njoku at the 9-10 turn is kind of more how I've been playing it. I do have a little Cooper, but not as much as those secondary options.
Okay. Got a little distracted. Got to note that. Didn't Miles just get hurt? I did not hear about this. If so, nothing serious. Did either of you? Did we just
I think it was like a minor thing in practice, but it's nothing too notable.
Okay. I've been trying to think through, like, because we're now that we're no longer just drafting fantasy football like 2 weeks before the season, but like we're literally doing it all summer. At some point, are there injuries that, like, it's never good to be injured, but like, could there be an injury that it's like, hey, at least this player now is not going to go have a more serious injury before the season? And maybe that would be an example of like a hand, or I'm not sure, something that doesn't have like recurring. And maybe it's okay, you're actually getting the ADP value. Does this make sense at all? Have you thought through that? Like maybe these minor injuries that just like, hey, the coaching staff is willing to at least like, let's take it slow with him. Maybe Kenneth Walker's an example.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Walker because it seems like the team isn't really concerned about the injury in terms of his availability for week 1, and it's more they just want to take it slow. Pete Carroll pretty much said that on the first day that the injury was announced, and then he kind of reinforced that a few days later. So I don't think like any injury is good, especially with Walker dealing with a groin injury, which can linger. Like, I don't think it's good, but I also don't think it's a major deal, and he's sometimes falling around plus past where he was going pre-injury. So that's one I don't really mind at all personally.
I think that's it. I think we're never happy with an injury, but if you get an injury and then that ADP value, that may actually be a net better time to draft him, if that makes sense.
Definitely,
yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Okay. Coming back around, QB's kind of slowed down as expected there. Let's take a look at that Cousins situation. We've got Addison with the Fields. We've got, where was the Hopkinson does not have a QB.
Cousins and someone I'm hardly ever reaching on just because I'm not sure how many like top end outcomes, I'd rather kind of play the waiting game, but especially since we have Hopkins and McLaurin, those are a couple late round guys. Like maybe this could be a Daniel Jones draft potentially. Even though we have
a lot of other players that I like in this area too.
Yeah, exactly.
Would have loved to have grabbed Bateman. That was the one I had my eye on. Maybe this is where a lot of running backs here. Is there a running back or wide receiver that you think we should be grabbing? Let me know.
I don't have too strong a takes on running backs. Go ahead, Jack.
Dylan is the one that I just find myself drafting most often when I kind of hit this tier. So that's probably the way I would lean right now.
We went with Dylan. I agree with that. I think Dylan's a bit mispriced. After that, I know we're low on Michael Thomas. I don't think we need to grab a wide receiver. I do like these running backs.
Yeah, I'd rather go running back. I'm fine with. I'd probably choose Charbonnet. I'm more of a Brian Robinson on underdog over Gibson, even though their ADPs are flipped. But
okay, Charbonnet, 5 seconds.
Yeah, we can take Charbonnet. I think either a running back here. I personally would have been fine with Kirk there, just to lock in the stack. But I don't think doubling up at RB is bad either.
Okay. Yep. I don't think there's a wrong way to approach that one with the Cousins situation. I think there's a chance. There's a chance Cousins still falls to us. We'll see. But even if he doesn't, I agree with Mark. Like we could maybe get a Daniel Jones. We could get Geno now that we have Charbonnet. We still have these late ones. We could just make it a 3 QB, 2 tight end type team. We still have a lot of flexibility. Khalil Herbert going 98. Reports obviously very good for him out of preseason. Can you guys talk about what we saw with his usage with the first team? And should we be kind of raising him closer to the A.J. Dillon range?
Yeah, he played all of the snaps with the first team offense, and then he obviously had that 50-plus yard touchdown. I think it's interesting that he got every single snap with the first team offense. Foreman, did he get, how many touches did he get? I actually can't remember off the top of my head. But all the reports,
but he played in like the third quarter. He played later on. Yeah.
All the reports from camp suggested that it's been pretty even between them. So I think that level of Herbert is at least it's interesting. Like it's not what I expected. Taylor KB actually he went to Bears camp one day and he said that Foreman looked like he was ahead, and we haven't really been adjusting significantly off of any of this stuff. And that's my take is that I still think it's going to be a split between Herbert and Foreman, and that it's not. And Herbert getting 7 snaps with the first team offense doesn't mean that he's like jumped ahead of Foreman. But it definitely was not what I expected.
Yeah. Like I kind of been thinking about it as, and obviously not to the degree, the minutia of like splits that you all have, but like in general, I can see Herbert and Foreman like splitting the carries on the ground, and then Herbert getting a lot more of the passing work early on. And then Roschon is just a what is his talent and how much is he able to earn as the year goes on. If Herbert and Foreman, if one of those two were to go down, I think Herbert could have a true workhorse role where Roschon kind of moves into. But like if Herbert goes down, I'm not expecting Deonte just to like magically start catching passes. And I think Roschon then would actually have an increased role there. So I just think the upside case for Deonte is quite limited, but I see it far more for both Khalil and Roschon.
Yeah, I think, last year we saw like David Montgomery would get 2 or 3 drives at a time, and then they'd put Herbert in for a drive. And this year, I think it's pretty safe to project that all 3 running backs are going to work in, which I think just kind of naturally hurts the value there too. So the fact that, Herbert did get all the first team snaps, I don't think it changes too much in my mind, because I do think there's probably going to be times where he gets a full drive and then maybe they put Foreman in for the next drive kind of a thing. So, looking forward in the preseason, if we see just only 2 backs getting worked in with the first team, I think that would be a bit more notable than Herbert. But certainly in these ambiguous backfields, I think like any preseason split that we see, they're just going to rocket up draft boards, because if Herbert was that guy, he certainly deserves to be going higher.
Yeah. I was just lost my thought on it, but yeah, that's okay. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Roschon did look good though. And Roschon's profile is also very like attractive.
There goes Kirk.
There goes Kirk.
Sorry to
with
interrupt.
a Dak. No, that's good. So it was the Hawkinson one. Grabs Dak with Lamb and Paul, which makes complete sense. Grabs the Hawk. All right, can't be too upset. That definitely makes sense. Got that falling Hawk value in the stack. That's okay. We'll see what still comes to us, but I've got a couple things up our sleeve. Oh, Anthony Richardson goes. Would have been awesome if he could have fallen to us. To Fields and Anthony Richardson. Fun little combo there. This is too sharp of a draft room. They're not letting us have any of that falling value.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones is the guy who we should hope is still there, because he's just so easy to stack late in drafts with Hyatt, Hodgins, and Slayton. So I think that should be someone we look at. And then I'm fine with the quarterback duo we mentioned earlier, the Tanny and Howell.
Yeah. Odell Beckham goes here. I only bring that up because this is the person who drafted Darren Waller. That person also does not have a QB, so Daniel Jones going here would have made all the sense in the world for Nick pick 6. These 3, you already have Hurts and Herbert. You've got Burrow. You have Mahomes. I think Daniel Jones could fall to us. We'll see what happens though.
Yeah, that Odell team also has Dalvin and Aaron Jones. So in 2018, that would have been dominant.
That's I mean, hey, Darren Waller too, Haymakers. This is definitely a blast in the past. Cooper Cup. All right, Nick pick 6. Nick picks from 2016 is I think that's what they're referencing to. Geno Smith is also a possibility to us. We have the Charbonnet if we wanted to. All right, we got Daniel Jones. Let's assume Daniel Jones. Who are we thinking if otherwise? Just throw in some top and Q names, but feel free, shout out. Let me know your thoughts.
This is definitely kind of a tough part. I don't have any super strong leans, so I'll toss to Jack if he's got anything.
Yeah, I like Dimes for sure. And then you have Boyd highlighted. I think Zay Jones is maybe my favorite receiver here, just like in a vacuum. He's another guy where projections-wise, like we are, I'd say, kind of conservative on him. And he's still showing as a massive value. Plus, he has contingent upside if something happens to Ridley or Kirk. Plus, we have a little correlation just betting on the Jags passing offense, even if we don't have Lawrence with Ridley already.
What about Geno here? And then we grab one of Tannehill or Howell later. Just gives us a bit more.
I'd be out on Geno. I would go Boyd or Zay.
Okay. I heard Zay. We're doing Zay. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. I like the Zay one.
I think with the top 3 Seahawks receivers all gone, I mean, we could grab like Noah Fant later, and we have Charbonnet, but Geno and Charbonnet, it isn't like massive correlation. So I like the Zay pick, I think.
Okay. That sounds good to me. And yeah, if there's any truth to Zay's actually being to be like in 2 wide receiver sets with Calvin Ridley, even though we missed out on the Trevor Lawrence, I still think like that could be a rising and strong pick. So I'm happy there.
Are you guys chasing the Tank Bigsby ADP right now? Because it's skyrocketing quite a bit.
I haven't been drafting him as much recently. I guess I've developed like a reputation internally at ETR as like the Tank Bigsby guy, which I don't totally love because I'm not chasing him like super high up the draft board. I just think he has a nice path to high value touches and contingent value if ETN gets hurt. So that's kind of my stance on him, as his ADP presumably is just going to continue to jump.
I think what's noteworthy is it kind of like is sports betting. So you bet the line if it's 6, that line can go from 6 to 3. And like maybe if we say 5.5 to 3.5, and it doesn't even cross like key numbers, that's a lot of raw movement, but like real movement that's not actually that much. And what I mean by that is like Tank Bigsby has moved up probably like 20 draft slots or whatever, but the players he's passed from running backs, it's not actually that big of a difference. I think like if he was actually to start making noise and passing McKinnon, A-Chain, Penny, Samaje Perine, like that would be a huge gap that people are drafting him ahead of that. But I think there's just such a teardrop after probably about McKinnon and A-Chain that whether it's Bigsby, Harris, Jalen Warren, they're Jamal Williams, like there's not that much movement there. So I have no problem drafting him in this group if it fits with my build, but there's no chance I'm riding him into that next tier.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think something that I've learned from doing projections, and I know Mark has talked about this as well, is when you're talking about guys within a certain tier, like the most minute projections changes can really skyrocket a guy, especially once you get outside the first, 6 or 8 rounds. So I do think that take makes sense, where it's fine to draft like one guy over another if they're not like tiers apart. The difference between these players realistically in terms of, if you somehow quantify expected value for an entire season, it's not that big of a difference.
Right. I care so much more about projections in the first probably like 7-8 rounds. Mm-hmm. After that, I mean, these rankings aren't actually based off pure projections because you're building in these ceiling outcome opportunities. Like you're basically thinking of what are those range of opportunities and how much variance, how much upside can I get? And like, if we were to like say, hey, these rankings are just pure projections, it would only be that median outcome. And especially on these running backs, if we take a look at like who's available, I don't care that much about median outcome. I care about what is complementary to my team. What does my team need? And then also in many cases, what is that upside that I'm looking for? So that's where I think someone like Tank Bigsby, if you believe that there's this legitimate outcome where if ETN gets hurt, then Bigsby has like that workhorse role. And then to get you there, he's actually getting high value touches with the pass catching, with the goal line work like that. Yes, we can build a median projection for when ETN's healthy, but if you're thinking of what's the actual range of outcomes, whether you draft him in the 12th or 13th or 14th, doesn't matter too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On Bigsby specifically, one thing that has scared me a little bit, I think it was John Shipley that mentioned that Bigsby could be the short yardage guy, and then JaMychal Hasty could still factor in on passing downs. And then Hasty played a 3rd and long with the starters in the first preseason game. And obviously it's week 1 of the preseason in, the first half of August, and Bigsby's a rookie. So that could just be it. But I guess the thought that if ETN gets hurt, it might not be 100% Bigsby like I might have thought a week or 2 ago, kind of turned me off a little bit as he goes at like pick 120 now.
That's fair. I think there are very few where we expect the backup to then be the full workhorse, but I do think with at least rookies, it's even more expected that like someone like Hasty would start there, but could Bigsby play his way into that larger role as it goes on? Maybe, but definitely agree with what you're saying. It needs to at least be considered. All right. We are just thinking through what are some maybe stacks, QBs we should keep an eye on. There's some wide receivers in the area I like. I love Marvin Mims, but we're a little concerned with his playing time from this past week. What are you guys thinking here?
Honestly, like Jaden Reed is there. I know it's far above ADP, but that could open up Jordan Love. I know Hodgins, if you scroll down, that would be a little bit of a reach, but I don't necessarily want to go tight end. But
Yeah, I don't want a tight end either. I was gonna say is Chark here.
We
No,
can do these
Chark
next.
went.
That's a
Doesn't
bit
look
of a
like
rip.
it.
I'm
We
going
could take
Mims, just
Mims.
throwing at the top.
Okay.
I think these two and then the Jaden Reed are just too much of like reaches. Like we could probably get them at the next.
Yeah.
Running back. This could be Kenneth Gainwell. I mean,
I'm good
if
with
you want
Gainwell.
him, this is the time to get him.
Sure. I'd be
Yeah.
good with that. And then we can
I'm
stop
good with-
at RB, I think.
I'm good with Mostert or Gainwell. I think we should take 6 though, with Pierce. But we'll figure that out later. I'm good with Gainwell.
I think I probably agree. I still want to go 6 here. I think we've kind of
Okay.
built ourselves a 3 QB, 2 tight end. So that gives us 6, 7 for the next. From a how do we want to stack the Giants, we probably just end up having Hodgins, Hyatt, maybe Slayton as our 1 wide receiver. Yeah, I mean, I could see 5 running backs here and 8 wide receivers, but our wide receivers are pretty strong at the top. Like Jefferson, Ridley, Hopkins, McLaurin is a strong start for 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also don't think it's crazy to just go Daniel Jones and Howell if it works out that way. But again, I am very high on Howell, so
Yeah,
it's risky.
It's risky. And it's probably a flaw in my process, but like whenever I like get a Jefferson team, you always like feel pretty good about it. And then I'm like, I want to play a little safer at the other positions because I don't want to waste like this really strong wide receiver, Justin Jefferson led team. Maybe that's a flaw and I'm drafting too safe, but that from like I don't know, QB wise, only having Daniel Jones and Howell, that kind of comes in. We'll see. I mean, I'm trying to think if I'd rather go Daniel Jones and Howell or just Mark Andrews. I don't know. That's tough.
That is a good question. I'm worried about. I like Howell too, but I try to be like, what do you guys think is the probability that he plays 17 games? In terms of benching, not in terms of injury.
I think it's kind of high. I would probably say like 75 to 80%. I mean, if he plays well, like that's kind of the bet. If he plays well, he's going to keep the job. So if you're devoting, the capital on a team here, then I'd like to bet on it going well. But
that's a good point. Yeah,
75 was the first one I said. One thing I'll reference though, this isn't a double stack. It's just Terry, and Terry could also do really well, even maybe better with Jacoby Brissett. So this isn't like a. Trying to think of another example where if I've got Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, I know that I'm betting heavy on that offense to be like, okay, the Colts are going to be doing well. And so I don't want to maybe grab a third QB in that. Here, Howell could suck or could still give us 8 games with some rushing upside and decent, but like we're actually doing fine in the playoffs with Jacoby Brissett as the QB for Terry.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern with Howell is if he does play all 17, they get San Francisco in that potential finals week, which is a tough draw for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Running backs that are available right now, Devin Singletary concerned me a little with the usage that we saw this weekend. The number one thing is that he was actually being taken off the field on 3rd downs. And initially I was thinking that like, Dameon Pierce is going to be the primary back. Devin Singletary can maybe play on some 3rd downs, more veteran. We've seen him catch passes. We've seen him pass block. But if he actually doesn't have that 3rd down role in that offense, I'm a lot more concerned on drafting him.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the new coaching staff, it was one of their, first offseason signings. I believe Ogunbowale and Burkhead are the mix for 3rd down backs, and those guys are pretty old and, Burkhead had a decent role at some point, but Ogunbowale has just been, kind of a traveling, reserve running back. So I'm not too worried about that given the signal of the front office and the new coaching staff.
So to be clear, that's one where you see it and you're like, I think this is more noise than something actionable.
Correct.
Yeah, I think Singletary is going to have a role, but I think it might be more like spelling Pierce on rushing downs as opposed to the 3rd down guy. Just because like his rushing efficiency in Buffalo wasn't all that great. I think like PFF had him below average receiving grade all 4 years or 5 or however many he was there. And the Bills like consistently were just looking for a pass catching back when he was there. So I think Singletary is like a good bet for 6 to 7 carries, 6 to 8 carries a game, and then contingent upside as that lead runner behind a probably underrated offensive line in Houston if Pierce misses time. But I do agree that the pass catching role based on preseason week 1 might not be all that great for him.
That's that. Calm as you like, and who we have in the chat ended up grabbing that Devin Singletary, going with a bit of a late RB model after the Josh Jacobs. Coming back around to us, we still need some QBs. We probably want to grab at least one wide receiver here. Just looking to see what else is available in case there were some late options here, but I think we're still pretty kind of tied into our Washington, Tennessee late. Let's see, where's Howell's 195, Tannehill is 203, so we can wait on those. Hodgins?
Yeah, I think Hodgins is good for one.
Okay.
I'm good with Hodgins too.
Jeff Wilson, Jerome Ford, if we wanted to grab our 6th running back.
I still like Ford quite a bit. He's kind of, he hit on training camp injuries, never a good thing, but I'm pretty confident he's going to have that RB2 role behind Nick Chubb, and we do get a little bit of a discount even though we are above ADP.
Okay. Jack, thoughts? Otherwise, Jeff Wilson, or I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, I'm good with Ford or Wilson. So if Mark prefers Ford, I'm good with that as well. I like both guys.
Okay, just to be clear, we do not have any Cleveland or New York Jets. We do have Mark Andrews. There's a little more correlation for the Miami-Baltimore, but like how much is Wilson doing in week 17? I don't know. Give me a decision.
I'm Ford, but fine either way.
Ford.
Sounds good. I like it. All right. Quick recap on what we have right now. We got a 1-6-7-1. Daniel Jones. Running backs are Pierce, Sanders, Dylan, Charbonnet, Kenneth Gainwell, Jerome Ford. I like that after these bye week 7. We ended up not drafting any other 7s. So that makes me feel good. Wide receivers, we are at 7. Jefferson, Ridley, Hopkins, McLaurin. Strong first 4, complementing with Zay Jones, Marvin Mims, Isaiah Hodgins. A lot of upside, even from those late wide receivers in my mind, which I like. 3 from the bye week 9, but I think we can survive. We got Jefferson, Hopkins, McLaurin, Hodgins for the other. Mark Andrews as our only tight end right now. That leaves us 3 picks. I think if we're our ideal situation is we go Howell, we go Tannehill, and then we grab a tight end with the very last pick of the draft.
That sounds great.
I'm good with that. We could also do Bryce and Hurst if that presents itself, but that's just an idea. We don't have to do that.
Okay. In general, I like that stack better than some of the others. I think the challenge with it though is we then kind of are stuck with the 2 QB build. Because I think if we wait on one of these QBs now, it's really a fingers crossed. Does a QB fall to us with the final pick of the draft? And if so, why is it Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I'm good with the double tap at QB next turn.
Just thinking, Gesicki just went down at practice, upper body. That's not great for Mike Gesicki, for ETR subscribers that have been drafting Hunter Henry since literally day 1 of this offseason. It's a little better for your portfolio. Okay.
In terms of like late round desperation stacks, I think my favorite if I ever get sniped or if I wait on something is the Desmond Ridder Mac Hollins duo. It kind of looks like Mac Hollins is going to be set in stone as the wide receiver 2 there, and if Kyle Pitts is slow to start, if London goes down, there could just be a lot of targets up for grabs there, even though we expect him to be run heavy.
I really thought you were going to say Mac, but I thought you were going to say Mac Jones and Hunter Henry.
I do like that one too, but that one's getting more expensive. No one is taking Mac Hollins, so like I always feel good about that.
I'm actually taking Mac Hollins. I like him too. The Ridder scares me a little bit for the same reasons as Howell. I might be too tentative on the guys who might not play 17 games, but I don't know. It feels like a good chance to me. Heineke's just better, but like regardless of who the quarterback is, Mac Hollins is like earning a pretty good target share for the Raiders last year. And now he's pretty clearly the wide receiver 2. And I mean, based on the training camp videos, he's popping in the PSM. So
you see those biceps?
He is definitely. if you would have asked like 10 fantasy football players to draw Matt Collins, those lines would have been so much straighter down the arms and far less of these just bulging muscles. Yeah, everybody remembers that one Matt Collins game from a DFS landscape last year with the Raiders, where I think he was min or close to min price, high own, and just went off. That was fun.
Definitely.
Speaking of guys who are not being drafted in drafts, we just got some news today about a tight end, Zach Ertz, on track for week 1. Is that someone we're considering? Should we start maybe drafting just because that's such a unique play? And hey, first 5 weeks, I think, of last year he was like a top 6, top 5 tight end. What are we thinking there?
I guess I don't hate it from the uniqueness perspective. There are so many like late round tight ends that I like drafting that it's hard for me to just, immediately put him in there. But certainly there's a lot of question marks around the Arizona passing game. So if we do think he's featured early as a potential, trade candidate midseason, I think that's okay. But more so, I've been betting on Trey McBride to kind of take that year 2 leap. And just at this point in my fantasy career, I'm not in love with drafting Zach Ertz.
I think Sam Sherman put in the our Slack that he's guaranteed. Oh, I don't want to get the number wrong. I don't know if
I think he said like 13 million. I think is what he said, but yeah,
that's a lot for an age 32, 33 tight end. Because I don't think like championship teams. I don't think they're saying, "Oh, we'd be so close if only we had that 33-year-old Zach Ertz." Maybe if Dallas Goedert goes down, like the Eagles will call, but that's a hard piece to trade.
Yeah, I'm not in love with Ertz either. Just off age model, and he's so like he provides basically nothing after the catch at this point. It's just catch and fall down. And so on the worst team in the league on paper, not something I'm super interested in.
I hear that. All right. Can we survive one more pick? Purdue man already has 3 QBs. Assuming he does not take one of our 2 QBs, I think we'll just go Howell, Tannehill, blah, blah, blah. Howell and Tannehill, and we'll figure out the final round 18 tight end.
Yep.
Okay.
Works for me.
Cool. We're going to go Tannehill first, just so then Mark can be like, hey, 17th round Sam Howell, that is a value.
Love it.
All about the optics.
Yeah. There you go. All right, let's do a quick recap. We know some people were in this chat, in this draft. I think we did come as you like earlier. Let's see how this draft kind of played out. Had that Las Vegas, Devante, Josh Jacobs going on. Grab Justin Fields, a little fall in value there. Watson, Jordan Addison, James Cook. James Cook screaming up draft boards. People are really excited at him. And some of the high stakes leagues, I've seen him go as high as the 5th round. I'm going to put a pause on this. What are our James Cook thoughts? And I guess I'm actually more interested. What are our Damian Harris thoughts?
We've been relatively conservative, I think, on James Cook's projection, and we were well above ADP on him for a while. So I have a lot of him from when he was going in the late 90s and 100s area. So I've definitely scaled back a little bit off the early 80s. The Damian Harris thing is a little concerning just because Latavius Murray, played a little better than we were expecting last year in Denver, and obviously they signed him for a reason. They're kind of looking for that bruiser back. So I'm okay taking Damian when he falls, but I also see like the path to Latavius being a thorn in our side as an old, veteran.
Yeah, and how old is Latavius right now? Are we at age 34?
I think he's like 33 or 34.
Latavius Murray is age 33. His birthday. Not quickly available on Google. That's okay. There we go. January 18th. So I guess this is his age 33 season unless they make the playoffs. That's old.
Yeah, I think he's the oldest running back in the league. I think I saw that somewhere. But I know Pat Thorne brought up that like if something happens to Cook, Murray could be the guy getting the passing situations because of his blocking and catching might be a little better than Harris. So that kind of scared me a little bit on Harris. I know people aren't drafting him for like the pass catching, but still the fact that there's probably multiple obstacles to a 3-down role and that he might not even have a total iron grip on his projected role has me a little bit fearful. And then on Cook, I like him too. I have a good amount of James Cook. I did see him go early 6th in a Best Ball Mania I did this morning, and that kind of surprised me. So if he goes there, I don't know how much more I'll have. But, the concept of James Cook and where he was going most of the offseason, I like it.
Yeah, and most importantly, he was going right after that wide receiver tier drop. So you could basically stack up, get your 5 or so wide receivers. And then after that, Quentin Johnston, Brandon Cooks area, you could actually get James Cook. And that was fantastic. But now you're basically having to choose. Do you take that last wide receiver or do you grab James Cook? Tough decision. Looking at some of these running backs, Gus Edwards is something I've been thinking about because going in, you got the J.K. Dobbins contract, maybe injury situation. Maybe Gus Edwards could actually play a larger role. But it looks like with preseason, Gus Edwards may be behind Justice Hill. Noise, or is this real?
You're muted.
Speaking of noise, none is coming out of Mark with his
Shoot.
muted.
That's brutal. I almost made it the full hour. I think it's I'm a little worried about it just because of the new offensive coordinator there, and we expect obviously a much heavier passing attack. So I've mainly been investing in Lamar and the passing attack and kind of letting others take Baltimore running backs. Obviously, they've been so efficient over the years, but that was in a completely different offensive scheme that was catered around running the ball. So I think efficiency and volume could dip a bit this year. So I trust our projections a little bit, and I think we're a little bit behind on Gus Edwards, so I haven't been taking too much.
I can see that. All right, Deontay Hardy goes. Looks like Deontay Hardy may actually be the third wide receiver to be drafting, not Khalil Shakir. I think that's an interesting one. We've seen Hardy actually have a little success on pass routes run. Routes run, he was actually pretty efficient when he was with the Saints. May have had a different last name. Always got me confused. But, all right, we're coming back around. Tight ends, name of the game for us. See a couple here that I don't mind. We are a Week 13 Mark Andrews, so that maybe limits us a little, but would love to hear you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I think McBride and Gesicki would be the two of interest for me. Gesicki, I guess, is hurt now. So by default, McBride would be my preferred option here, but it's not like I'm super dug in on my round 18 tight end take. So if you guys disagree, I'm fine going another direction.
Okay. I'm okay with McBride. I think the Ertz thing scares me a little, though, for a team that's so bad.
It does. I think, we're expecting the Rondale Moore panic has been more so because they're probably going to play more 2 tight end sets and, more 2 wide receiver sets. So I think like McBride and Ertz could both coexist, but I would choose Michael Mayer, if we didn't have the 13 bye. Otherwise, I'd probably go McBride or Noah Fant.
Okay. So I actually like Noah Fant right now because he's not being drafted that often. And on a high-powered offense, like one wide receiver goes down, he has some spike weeks. I think it could work. We also have Charbonnet. We don't have a bring back on Pitt, so it's not that exciting. Las Vegas, Indy, I'm not really that caring about a bye week 13. So if we want Michael Mayer, I'm fine with just saying, hey, he's got upside to actually count in our flex. I'm going to say no to McBride with this Ertz news. Mayer or Fant? What's your guys' votes?
I lean Fant, but I think Mark's going to say Mayer. So I don't know.
I don't know. I'm scared of the bye week. I would probably go Fant, but
there it is. Let's do it. We're finishing this with some Noah Fant. We talked about Noah Fant and Charbonnet. We just missed out on that Geno. Still worked out though. Overall, what do we think of this draft? Mark, give me your thoughts first.
I like it. I think it's a bit balanced. With the 3 quarterbacks and 6 running backs, I think we could have maybe pushed the envelope a bit more and done another stack at wide receiver or tight end. But certainly love tight end with Mark Andrews. I've really been targeting him quite a bit, so I love that we ended up with him. And I love these more 0 RB builds, so I love our wide receiver room as well.
Awesome, Jack. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a solid team. I have been going more 2 quarterback, and then either getting one of the earlier guys, maybe like cut off Watson on the who I would consider the top couple tiers of quarterback, or I've been double tapping 2 of the kind of dimes, Kirk to Dak tier. So this is kind of a more unique build for me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So we'll see how it goes.
I feel that. I do think we got a little unlucky with some QB aspects. Would have loved to have gotten the Christian Kirk here and then Trevor Lawrence, like from ADP, that should work out. Didn't get the Kirk Cousins to fall to us. Didn't even get any, would have loved an Anthony Richardson. It just kind of felt a little tough.
I think in hindsight, if we are worried about that last tight end pick, we could have maybe, again, done the Howell quarterback and then, gone with like a Hunter Henry at that turn and maybe Tannehill would have fallen. I think that could have been a potential risk, but on stream, I don't know how risky we want to get with it in your EV, Justin.
No worries. That is all of our EV, and we all know that there is only negative EV when you are streaming drafts. So, Jack, Mark, thank you very much for joining me today. This has been fun. Other than just continuing to grind the preseason, get those inputs right for the projections, get those rankings out for the ETR subscribers. What do you guys have going on this summer? Jack, you first.
I should have some content coming out this week. The How to Draft from Picks 1 to 4 article, I think, came out like an hour before we hopped on the stream. And then 5 through 8 and 9 through 12 should be coming out in the coming days. And just, more written content, hopefully more podcasts in the coming weeks, but mostly just grinding projections, grinding writing, and waiting the 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it is until football is officially back.
Can't wait. Mark, what's up?
Yeah, well, it is still best ball summer, but we've got redraft coming up. I actually had a defense and special team tiers and rankings article come out yesterday, and that I took a different approach this year. Brandon Thorne, who's amazing. I love his work at ETR. He releases offensive and defensive line rankings. So I looked ahead to the whole season and kind of played out defensive line over offensive line mismatches and how we could target that in season-long fantasy. So that article went up, and then if you just want to follow Twitter at Mark Dank, I'll be tweeting a lot more as the season progresses and obviously monitoring the projections day in and day out with Jack.
Love it. Well, this is fantastic. For me, I'll be back on Thursday with another great stream. Got a fantastic guest interested to pick his brain. If you're in the Tampa Bay area, we're about to go have an Underdog in-person meetup at Big Storm Brewery in Clearwater. So I'm heading over there in about 20 minutes. Should be a good time. And Jack, I'll take those meeting minutes that you were taking for us. If you could just put those in our inboxes by the end of the day, that'd be great, EOD. Everyone else in chat, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Great drafting. Unfortunately, people who were in the draft with us, too good of drafting because you didn't let us have any falling value. That's okay. We will see you all later in the week. Enjoy.